Surprise! The $750 stimulus checks the global economic crisis is coming. This is a warning March 2020. Most of our lives changed and it wasn't for the better. The health crisis took many lives, businesses and dreams. It was a catastrophe of global proportions now, and 2022, it seems like another crisis will change our lives. So let's go ahead and kick things off with the few headlines. First off, in Sri Lanka, their president and prime minister are being called down as almost 1,000 trade unions asked for their resignation amidst the economic crisis in the country. In another article, the four horsemen of an economic downturn are headline inflation, war gods, and of course the pandemic in Singapore. Prime Minister Lee announced that the world could face recession in the next 2 years, blaming inflation and lack of growth across the globe. Everyone seems to be reporting the exact same thing, that we're all in for the worst economic ride of our lives. Investors are being thrown curveball after curveball as the Federal Reserve scrambles to attain the red-hot inflation that we're in right now. Today, it's at 8.5%. But for all we know, this is well below the actual reality of the situation. Many experts are actually saying that our inflation rates are closer to 30 or 40%. And with all of that collapse, the stock market crashing is not far behind. There are now multiple signs pointing to another stock market crash. The question is, are we ready? I mean, just looking at the S&P 500 in the last 4 months of 2022 shows the worst start of a year since 1939, just a couple years after the Great Depression. In April, it dropped by 9.6%, its worst number since March of last year. Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, and Nasdaq went down 13% last month, its biggest monthly loss since 2008. And we all know what happened back in 2008. FANG stocks, or as they more commonly know, include Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. They're all down almost 30%. Now, if we backtrack to November, FANG stocks have altogether lost around $1.6 trillion in market cap. Amazon took such a loss that Jeff Bezos, whose fortune is down almost $44 billion since it started in 2022. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific region are also slipping, especially with lockdowns in China, in the slow factory movement directly affecting our supply chain. In Europe, stocks are also dipping due to the data coming out from China and also a sudden fall in the Swedish stock market. Now, all this is adding to the uncertainty and even the risk of recession, and the numbers are showing it day by day. The three factors of gas, the pandemic, and the war, they're all inching toward Europe, the US, and China, and it's only a matter of time before we are finding ourselves in a horrific recession. And Deutsche Bank, in less than a month, changed its prediction from a mild recession to a major recession. It's going to happen in the United States, citing inflation as one of the triggers. And at the peak of inflation, Americans got pay cuts instead of enjoying their wage increases. The dollar's purchasing power has weakened, and with that, more and more Americans are sweeping to buy necessities with little to no resolve in sight. Now, speaking of the positivity, throughout the pandemic, select individuals were key in keeping our lives moving no matter how rough the change was. Governor Tim Walz recently signed a bill into law stimulus checks that aims to assist almost 700,000 people in the state. The assistance, dubbed as hero checks, also known as one-time stimulus check payments of $750. The bill was signed on April 29th. There was a copy of the bill ceremonially signed by the governor, surrounded by legislative leaders, commissioners, frontline workers, and business owners at the Capitol. As per Governor Walz, Minnesotans see a win-win-win. Amid the height of this health crisis, eligibility could be based on different factors, one of which is work hours, where individuals could have had to work 120 hours between March 15, 2020 all the way to June 13 of the following year. An income cap of $85,000 per individual has been set for individual filers who did not necessarily directly work with the pandemic-related patients. Those who did could receive the checks if they made $175,000 per year or less. Now, the state does require workers to apply and provide proof of their work hours. Department of Labor and Industry Commissioner Rosalyn Robertson said that the agency was working on a third party to create an app and expected that the portal would open within about a month. She also suggested that the workers should sign up for any updates on the progress via frontlinepay.mn.gov. Frontline workers that were present during the bill's approval were elated to see their year-long plea for bonus stimulus checks finally granted. Mary Turner, Minnesota Nurses Association president, exclaimed that, "I keep pinching myself that we actually did it and how grateful I am to both the House and the Senate the check for $750. It might not seem like a lot. That's equal to a month's rent, that equals groceries. That's money that can go back into their savings accounts." Also, the tens of millions of Americans saddled with student loans may finally hear why President Biden's administration has decided to do something on the student loan debt forgiveness. Now, though President Biden has shared his skepticism about sweeping student loan forgiveness in the past, another development this week suggests that he may be warming up to the idea when the topic came up this week with the Congress Hispanic caucus. President Biden basically said that he was currently looking to provide some form of student loan debt cancellation. According to Representative Tony Cardenas, who attended the meeting, President Biden is considering forgiving some student loan debts. Cardenas also clarified that, while the president never mentioned that amount, nor did the president say that he was going to wipe out all student loan debt. And if President Biden cancels student loans, it could likely happen before November, as White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said. Biden could make a decision about any cancellation of student loan debt before the conclusion of the pause on the student loans. The payment pause is estimated to have saved borrowers roughly $195 billion in March 2020. Right now, it's set to expire on August 31st. That is, an outstanding education debt balance is sitting $1.7 trillion just dangling over people's heads right now. According to the numbers, roughly a quarter of student loan borrowers, or 10 million people, are estimated to be in delinquency or in default. Surveyed student loan borrowers reported a 16% likelihood of quickly missing a payment if the payment pause ended. Now here's what else we know about Biden and student loan forgiveness. Biden, who has already canceled $17 billion of student loans, supports up to $10,000 of wide-scale student loans forgiveness for borrowers for student loans borrowers, and President Biden also wants Congress to pass legislation to enact wide-scale student loan forgiveness, and he will sign any legislation that Congress passes. Biden doesn't support total student loan cancellation or even $50,000 of student loan cancellation. Biden doesn't believe that he has the legal authority to enact wide-scale student loan forgiveness through an executive order. Biden is considering several potential options of student loans, including some form of wide-scale student loan cancellation. While Biden is mulling his options, Republicans are doing their very best to get student loan payments restarted again. They recently introduced just this week that a group of 5 GOP lawmakers moved to end President Biden's ability to keep extending the federal student loan payment pause, Senator John Thune of South Dakota in a statement. As Americans continue to return to the workforce more than 2 years after the pandemic began, it is time for borrowers to resume repayment of student loan obligations. Taxpayers and working families should not be responsible for continuing to bear the costs associated with the suspension of repayment. With the Stop Reckless Student Actions Act, the Republican senators are looking to end President Biden's suspension of federal student loan payments and could also prohibit the president from canceling outstanding federal student loan debt due to a national emergency and for the silver lining. It will still allow the president to temporarily suspend repayments for low and middle-income borrowers and future national emergencies. Fellow GOP Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina said the admission can't have it both ways. both calling for a return to normalcy from the pandemic while also extending the federal student loan payment pause. He said resuming payment is long overdue, especially in today's strong job market, and is today's job market that strong? Inflation is only going one direction, and that is up. Soaring food prices at the grocery stores, gas prices jumped 20, 30, 50 cents in a day, oil and gas companies hitting record profits. Now, one way that I found to offset the cost of inflation is to find the companies that are actually paying dividends. They are literally paying you to own their stocks, and you no longer need a lot of money to invest in one finance that offers fractional share purchases.